Hello, I'm David with Ding Ding Dynasty, and I'm here today to walk you through the installation of our Rev1 version Model 1 of our NoHo Signal Bell Controller Kit. The kit's shipped to you from USPS in a medium, if it fits, it ships box. It has all the materials you're going to need to do a complete installation. First and foremost, the box includes our installation guide. Our installation guide has inside a schematic, which basically shows you in figure form how the connections are made to do the installation. The schematic is annotated with a number of points that are important with regard to particular precautions to take during the installation. That page also includes the legend for the status indicator on the controller, so that you have a good understanding of what that indicator is communicating. We also have a warning on here with regard to line voltage in the installation. While there's no line voltage connections that are made in the new Rev1 version of the signal bell controller, there is line voltage inside of the signal bell. And if, while the shell is open and you're doing the installation, you happen to mishandle the internal parts of that back box with the cord cap plugged in, there is a shock hazard associated with it. Clearly, we wouldn't want you to mishandle the back box, and secondly, not have it ever plugged in when you were taking it apart. So you prescribe to those two precautions, and you should be safe. Supplementing the schematic is a sequence of installation steps, and in each one of these is outlined particular items that you need to be paying particular attention to during the installation. Secondly, the sequence of the installation is our recommendation to make the installation go smoothly. Third, on the installation guide inside here, we have the warranty and disclosure. Basically, our warranty is a year. Will replace a failed part. We do not do factory repairs or anything like that. If you have a failed part, we'll send you a new one. You're responsible for taking the old one out and putting the new one in to restore the operation of your system. The key component that's part of the Signal Bell kit is the controller itself, the Ding Ding Dynasty NoHo Signal Bell controller. We're now shipping Model 1 Rev1, different from our baseline that we've been shipping earlier. This version now is set up so that all the connections are low voltage connections. There's no line voltage connections. So appropriate changes have been made to the controller and to the signal bell to accommodate that. The controller box has a little bit of an advisory on it that basically says that this controller was factory tested and was operational, and if during shipment it shows no sign of damage, then it's going to work coming out of this box. And if you call us up shortly after installation and say the thing is fried, it's probably because you didn't prescribe, the installation didn't prescribe to the procedure, or it was connected with the power on. This advisory says any of those two conditions exist during the installation, and it's going to void the warranty. So be sure you don't have power on, and you follow the directions and check all the connections before you power it up, and you'll have years of reliable performance out of the system. Secondly, the kit includes a Milton signal bell. We've chosen the model 827, which is referred to as a remote controlled Milton signal bell. It differs from the baseline bell in the fact that the baseline bell has a pneumatic hose, of course, driving a diaphragm that actually actuates the striker to hit the bell and make the ding ding. The remote control version, instead, the signal hose, the pneumatic hose, is terminated in a device that converts that pressure differential into a mechanical electrical contact. And in that way, it's switching line voltage in order such that you can remotely locate the bell on the other end of a line voltage wire. And that switch line voltage wire will actuate a solenoid that's inside of this bell in order to actuate the striker to make it ring. Included, finally, to make the installation complete, is a power supply for the controller, and also it's the low voltage that we use through the dry contact for activation, and the low voltage that we send up to the signal bell to cause the switching of the line voltage that rings the bell. We include a simple doorbell so that you can complete the installation with a simple dry contact closure, wire to hook that up, and fasteners, sufficient fasteners to fasten both the controller and the signal bell to wood, drywall, or masonry. Step one of the installation is removing the cover from the bell. So we'll take the shell off the bell. It's attached with two Phillips head machine screws. Require a number 2 screwdriver. And with the shell removed, you're going to reveal the back box. And this is your first look at the modifications that we've made to the Milton signal bell. To the standard electrical box that they've augmented with a bracket to fasten the bell, we've added a 3-prong cord. This cord now includes ground, and that ground is used as an equipment ground for the back box and the bell itself. Should the line voltage that's here come in contact with the metal of the signal bell, this will cause the circuit breaker associated with the circuit that's supplying power to the bell to trip the breaker and open the circuit, de-energizing it. So there's certainly a safety measure that's been added to our modifications of the bell. We've also added a fuse for line voltage to protect the coil from an overcurrent condition. And we've added now a relay in revision 1. That relay confines all the line voltage switching to actuate the striker in the back box. And we've added a control pigtail that ties into the controller that's actually switching now low voltage in order to ring the bell. As you can see, we've got a standard electrical box here as the back box for the bell, and it, typical of a standard electrical box, has 2 holes in the back. We recommend you use both of those for the installation. Now, the installation of this box is critical in terms of being sure that it's in a very firmly mounted position. When it's firmly mounted, you'll get a nice clean tone out of the bell. If it's not well mounted, like in drywall exclusively, the tone's not going to be as clear and it won't ring as loudly. So if you're doing an installation in drywall, we suggest that you get at least 1 stud for one of the screws and then use the included zip-it for the other screw. In that fashion, we will attach this to the wall here for demonstration. And for simplicity's sake, we're just going to use a single screw today so that we can expedite the process here. Next is going to be the signal bell, which we want to put within reach of the control wires. We'll get that out of the box here. It too can mount easily to any one of those materials. Here we're just going to put it directly into the drywall. Not advisable, as we would encourage you to use the included zip-its, but yet again, in the interest of time, we're going to install this directly into the drywall. This obviously is not nearly as critical in terms of being mounted in a solid piece of material as the bell is. That's why the bell goes first, has highest priority, and you want to make sure you get it in a stud. If you're in masonry or wood, you've got that covered already. The first part of the electrical connections, we like to start with the power supply. It is the low voltage power source for the controller itself, and is used for the activation device, in this case a doorbell. Could be a door sensor switch, motion sensor, anything that creates a dry contact as an activation output. Unlike our baseline Rev1's power supplies are actually marked the opposite way. Here the plus conductor is marked with a white stripe. The minus conductor has the lettering on it. So we'll start with the plus. The plus out of the power supply not only is going to go to the controller itself, but it needs to be wired to one leg of the doorbell switch. It ensures that the doorbell switch, or whatever dry contact you might be using, will be switching the 28 volts of the power supply. So we're going to join those together. And then finally we need a small pigtail that was in the bell box to take that line voltage and bring it into one of the inputs on the output relay of the system. So in order to do this properly, you want to make sure that you get all the insulators lined up and the conductors together, and then twist them. This is going to create a good mechanical connection, so that we are ensured we have a good electrical connection. So make sure that the lug is unscrewed all the way. Place it in the front part of the lug hole and then tighten it down. As it snugs up, make it firm, and then give it a tug test to make sure you've got it properly connected. Continuing on, now we're going to take the minus conductor out of the power supply and put it into the minus input to the controller. But also what we need to do is obviously get 24 or 28 volt switch to the relay. And in doing that, we want to have one side of that relay coil on the negative, and then we'll switch the plus voltage through the relay. So in doing that, we'll take the minus conductor from the power supply, hook it into one of the two conductors and the control wire coming out of the signal bell. And we're going to do the same thing there. Make sure the lug is all the way open. Put the twisted pair conductors under the lug, snug it up, make sure it's in there good, and then give it a good tug test. Next, sort of while we're up here, we can complete the connection of the activation device that's tied to the dry contact closure, in this case, for our example, the doorbell. You can connect it to any one of the 6 inputs, I1 through I6. The controller will accept up to 6 activations, so if you have 2 entrances into your garage, for instance, and you want to have a doorbell on either one or a motion sensor on either one, the controller will accommodate that easily. Again, placing it in the open lug towards the front, tightening the lug, and doing a tug test ensures that we've made a good connection. Finally, we're looking at now tying the output of the controller into the assembly. That pigtail that we tied into the plus terminal of the controller and getting the plus voltage from the power supply is going to go into one of the 2 conductors associated with the output relay. That's going to supply 28 volts to the input of the output relay. Again, firm it up. Give it a tug test to make sure you've got it. And then the other conductor that goes to the control pigtail of the bell will be the switched 28 bolts that'll complete the circuit through the signal bell activation relay and will be complete. Now there are multiple pairs of output relays on the controller, Q1 through Q4. Each has associated with it a different delay or timeout, 2, 4, 6, and 8 second. We call them resets. And what these various, what that delay means is that after an activation occurs, the controller will require that duration of time before it will accept another activation. So for a deterministic device like a doorbell, the 2-second delay is appropriate. But if you have a motion sensor that might trigger multiple times for an event, a motion event, you want to increase that reset period, and you might play around with which one works best, but up to 8 seconds, so that the multiple detections that may occur from that device for a single event won't cause multiple rings of the signal bell. So now that we've got it connected, we can put the bell back on the back box, starting with a single screw so we can kind of get the alignment done easily. So much for being easy to do here. You want to make sure that you secure the bell to the back box as firmly as you secured the back box to the substrate you're mounting it on. That ensures that it rings true and loudly. All right, I've got a nail here that's helping us make the install a little bit cleaner here. Make it a little tidy. Now this comes down to our convenient receptacle here. And the first thing we recommend that you do is to install the controller power supply. So we'll plug that in, and the first thing that we'll do is we'll confirm that we've got a proper status on the controller. When it gets plugged in, the LED will indicate that the power is on, and then it will begin flashing periodically, indicating that it's running and its status is good. Any sort of an air condition would be indicated by a rapidly flashing status light. So with that in place, we're now ready to plug in the bell itself into the receptacle. And with that, we're pretty much ready to go. On the end of the doorbell wire that we supply would be placed your dry contact closure, whatever that might be. Instead of opening up this package, I'm going to just touch the wires together to emulate the dry contact device that you might be using. And by a simple touch of the wires, we get a nice ring of the bell. Make sure the wires aren't touching. And what I want to show you then is how the controller becomes immune to multiple contact closures and show you how the delay works. So if, for instance, I were to touch this rapidly without those delays, you might think that the bell's going to continue to ring, but you'll find that the delay impedes all but the very first activation that occurs. So we have one activation, and then I continue to make contact, open and close the contacts, and as you can see, we're not getting an activation. If I pause for that 2-second period and then touch them again, we'll get a fresh activation. What also the controller is able to do is if the contact closure, let's say a door sensor, and the door swings open and stays open for a long period of time, we can emulate that by just touching the wires. We'll get that double ring, but then it won't ring again while the contacts are closed, here the door being open. Once the door is closed and then opened again, whoops, I didn't wait the 2 seconds, we'll get the activation back. So there you have it, a simple overview of the installation of our no-hose signal bell controller. Thanks for joining us today, and be sure to go to www.nohosesignalbellcontroller.com and order yours today.